Hello, my name is Dawn Campbell. I'm the Business Director at the IAPC&M, the International Authority for Professional Coaching and Mentoring. And today I'm joined by the lovely Dr. Liz Sparks, who is obviously IAPC&M accredited and has a beautiful course that's accredited called a Diploma in Transformational Heart Based Practices. Before we get into that, I'd like to know a little bit more about Liz, and I know you would too, because I'm quite often asked by prospective students, tell me a little bit more about the founder of a course. What's the energy like? What's the philosophy like? So these interviews are really for that purpose. So a couple of questions just to get a feel for who you are, Liz. What did you actually want to be and do when you grew up?
Well, I remember, pretty much from the get-go, I wanted to sit in circles and help people. So I spent a lot of time dressing up as a witch and creating potions and things like that. So I think the desire to be in that sense of community has always been there.
Lovely. Okay. And when was the last time you were a paid employer? And now obviously you're an entrepreneur, but there's two questions in one. What was the catalyst for you becoming that entrepreneur?
Yeah, so my last employment was with a university, and I recently stepped away from that actually because it felt like the right time to become self-employed. I developed and wrote with another person called Surya Chitta, an MSc in mindfulness and compassion, which I ran at the university for some time. But the catalyst, I suppose, was wanting to bring much more to what I could offer people. And I knew that by leaving my position at the university and essentially going it alone, I would be able to offer much more and bring much more into my courses and retreats for people.
Okay. So how did you get your first big break then?
Well, I think actually it was, I suppose it wasn't a really big instant experience. I woke up one morning a few years ago and decided that I wanted to run a retreat. I'd been, working with people in a health psychology way for some time, teaching meditation, giving Reiki, and I thought, actually, I want to bring this all together. So I ran a retreat at a beautiful venue just outside the Cotswolds, and it went so well. And I came away from it thinking, this is exactly where I want to be. And I was learning so much. It wasn't just about what I could bring to other people. It was actually about my own learning and insight after running something like that. So I think that was the moment of, yes, this is where I'm headed. And it was after that I wrote my 8-month course, actually, because I saw that by taking people even deeper into these practices was not only life-changing for me, I'm working through it all the time, but it was going to, help other people.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you touched on a very important point there. It's helping you, so it's going to help other people. So what do you do, Liz, when, things get too much? How do you stay motivated?
Yeah, well, for me, the most powerful things that have helped me with particularly anxiety, I would say, is using Sanskrit mantra. The energy of the mantras are just absolutely beautiful, and they really do create shifts and changes. Also, having a very good, solid group of close friends, really, really useful. And of course, being in nature, connecting, with nature and the world around us, and meditating. So the combination of those things for me are my go-to if things get a bit tricky. And that's what I've brought into the course as well.
And I presume that protects your own energy as well.
Yeah, it's that allowing things to be felt, be seen, but also having that almost container that gets created by supportive people, Sanskrit mantra and meditation, for it actually to move through, rather than we can start to become quite blocked if we're not processing something.
And I know from having run retreats myself, you know, it's exhausting, all the preparation, and then you're caught up in the moment of delivering a beautiful workshop for people, and then you're exhausted afterwards. So you have to keep, you know, practicing what you preach, really, don't you?
Absolutely. I think being successful in this kind of work stems from knowing your own limits and having good supervision, having a really solid practice yourself. I think without those things, you can end up, feeling really, really quite washed out.
Yeah, I think creating your dream team around you of peers, like-minded people, and you make some good relationships with your clients on retreat as well. They become some lifelong friends. It's very important. I was listening to a podcast yesterday, Gabby Logan and Claudia Winkleman, and they said, you know, men, boyfriends, husbands, partners come and go, but your girlfriends stay forever. So that's really important.
Yeah.
So what are some
really
of the top tips, other than that one, that you would give to aspiring entrepreneurs who want to achieve that break from employee to entrepreneur that you've managed to achieve then, Liz?
First of all, have a really good look inside at what holds you back. What is it? You know, what is that core belief? What is that, you know, thought that runs around, that sort of train that keeps you in that place? A lot of the time, these things hold us to, you know, keep us in a place, and that feels safe. So it's almost unlearning that and thinking, you know, why is it that I stay here? Why is it that I don't, you know, take that leap forward? So first of all, having a look at that and examining it and finding ways to work with it. But also, I would say, stay with what really, really speaks to your heart. Don't go into aspects or parts that feel as though they're pulling you away from, you know, what really makes your heart sing. I think that can be one of the biggest mistakes we make, is that we feel we should or we must, you know, engage in certain things to be a success. So try to stay aligned with what really speaks to you, what really, you know, brings you joy, because then you're just taking that out to other people really naturally.
Yeah, and it just flows. So what are some of the trends that you're seeing in your particular niche market? Because it is a particular niche market, isn't it, Liz?
Yeah, and sorry, what do you mean, Dawn, by trends?
Are there any trends that you're seeing? You know, we're coming out of COVID. Is there a particular need that, you know, more people are going towards spiritual coaching because of what's happened, maybe?
Yeah, a huge shift.
I would have thought
I would
so.
say that I've seen a 50% increase probably in the last 6 months to what I'd sort of been watching before. Not only for some of my students, but also people inquiring and asking about it, coming along to meditation sessions. You know, what we're starting to see is that people actually, they're getting to a point now with everything that's been happening of, you know, who actually am I? What do I really want? And, you know, why do these difficulties arise in me? What is it that I'm not actually, you know, attending to? And yeah, a lot of people now want that deep connection, you know, whether we call it to the soul self, to the true self, you know, to the heart of who we are. We're wanting that more and more now. We want to live in a way that allows us to feel connected and happy and at ease. And really that comes from being honest and true in your own energy and who you really are.
So if I understood you correctly then, Liz, what you're hearing or seeing is a trend for people asking bigger questions, deeper questions of themselves and the world as a whole.
Yeah, and a real honesty. You know, what I've seen with my coaching clients is a real honesty of, actually, this is how I am just now. How can I create a change? You know, it's almost like, actually, let's just do it. Let's just actually make things a little bit easier now. So much more honesty as well.
Okay. And what about you personally? you know, you've come out of COVID the same as the rest of us, if we're ever, you know, completely out of it. But you know what I mean? You know, we're finding some sort of new normal. What do you do that brings you joy and, you know, keeps you in touch with spirit and grounds you, Liz?
Well, as much as possible, I go and spend time with my friends who also love meditation. So I'll do that as much as possible. We often meditate out in nature, in the woods, and also just actually having some fun, you know, outside, enjoying things, laughing. You know, I think that's humor and engaging with people who share the same, you know, way of being. Is one of the most healing aspects that we can be in, really. You know, actually just having a laugh and having some fun and being outside is probably, you know, my go-to. Being with people that I love being with. I absolutely love that social aspect of just, you know, sharing those spaces and being, yeah, just in our own skin and not trying to always attain something. I think that's really important to know when to step away from the work and the drive to succeed and just enjoy.
You sound quite content.
Most of the time. I definitely have my fair share of, oh my goodness, here's another, you know, thing to overcome. But generally, I do work on it regularly.
What's the funniest thing that's ever happened to you, would you say?
The funniest, I suppose I've had some interesting, what my friends would call Lizisms, where I've said, you know, things that sound completely bonkers in a very serious situation. I think that's probably, you know, the thing that happens quite a lot. I don't know about funniest though. I think just regular saying things that perhaps sound hilarious when there's quite a serious situation.
Well, that's nice to be able to see the lighter side of things, and not lose that sense of perspective, which sounds like quite a special skill that you could teach us on your course, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we try when we're in, you know, when we're in the sessions, we're trying to always bring in, you know, that lightness. It's not all hard work and, you know, going to those deep places.
Because going to those deep places can actually trigger us and make us quite sad and cry. And I know crying can be good, but you know, some people are frightened of going there, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the things that we really talk about before the course starts. You know, is this actually going to be the right time for you? You know, have you maybe laid down some foundations? You know, if there's been something big, have you been able to talk about it and attend to it? And as long as people know and anticipate that there is a possibility of some sort of release or change, then generally, you know, that's a really good thing. And I think the fact is that the group creates that container, if you like, to be able to shift and move through things. Because essentially we're all experiencing the same emotions at different times. I think we're just experts at perhaps appearing that we're not. So actually, being in a group and being ready to just clear or move through things can be really, really powerful.
Okay. Now, I'm a big fan of Desert Island Discs. So I've got to ask you, what book and music track and luxury item would you take and why, Liz?
Okay, I would definitely take one of my shamanic books by Alberto Villoldo. I think he's just absolutely brilliant. And I follow a lot of his practices and his talks. So I would definitely take one of his books. Luxury item. Well, I think it would have to be my beautiful meditation cushion, because I have such a strong association with that sense of peace. So I think that would be the one thing that I would take. In terms of music, it would have to be some really good drumming music that really gets your heart beating and just raises your vibration. I think I'd be pretty sorted with those three things.
Lovely, lovely. Okay, so we're coming towards the end of our time together, and it would be remiss of me if I didn't ask you about what are you working on at the moment? What's your latest project? What can potential students expect from you?
So I'm really working on the next Moonology course. So this takes people through how to work with the energies of the moon and aspects of astrology, and how actually, by noticing what happens as we move through the moon's phases, we can actually harness that to bring change into our lives. And then I'm also working on some retreats that we're going to have in the winter time, some quite big ones, some big healing retreats.
Oh, lovely. So when's the next one?
The next one will be in November. So we're just working on that at the moment.
Okay. And what in life is still a mystery to you then, Liz?
I suppose I always want to know a little bit more about how our thoughts and what we're experiencing is interconnected with what happens next. So the physics around that absolutely fascinates me, that interconnectedness. And so that's still, a big mystery that I'm always keen to learn a little bit more about.
So if you could ask a sage any question, and they could be dead or alive, what would you want to know the answer to? What would you ask them?
I would ask them, what would be the first step to completely reaching inner peace? I think that would be the first thing. What is it that I'm not quite, where am I missing the mark? That's what I'd want to know. Because that's my main drive, really, is getting that sense of inner peace.
And obviously somebody who's content and has these practices, and you're walking the walk and talking the talk, what gift can you give people as they start their own journey, Liz?
So the main thing is starting to connect more in a heart-based way. So the simplest thing that I'll normally show people on a first session is to remind them to place the hand onto the chest, notice the gentle pressure, the warmth, and just start to breathe into the heart space, because there's an immediate coming back to the body, coming back to being centered. And after a while, it becomes, so quick that as you connect in that way, you start to bring everything back in, rather than feeling very, very dispersed and in lots of different thoughts and emotions.
And of course, that's something that people can do for themselves long after their course. They can just remember to do that and what they've learned.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think you've got a course, a retreat in September, haven't you?
Yeah, so the 8-month diploma starts in September. So we've still got some places left on that, and then it's consecutive for eight months, one session every month, 4 in person. Yeah, 4 in person, beautiful venue on the outskirts of the Cotswolds, and then 4 online, just to make it a bit easier.
Fantastic. Okay, well, we'll put a link out on the blog with this recording, and if you just remind us where potential students and clients can find you, Liz.
Yeah, so you can have a look at my website, which is drlizsparks.com.
Okay, and of course you can find Liz in the IAPC&M directory as well, both in the personal directory and under the accredited courses. So I'm very envious of everybody who'll be on that September offering, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about the moon one when you release it. I'm sure we'll do another interview then, but thank you for your time this morning, Dr. Liz Sparks. Really appreciated your time and enjoyed getting to know you better. Thank you.
Thanks, Dawn.
Bye-bye.
Bye.